Arsenal held on against Aston Villa to eventually go and win 2-0 later on in the game, with a big inclusion of Leandro Trossard coming off the bench once again to score with his first touch. However, Trossard came on and he changed the game for Arsenal and they created a lot more chances. In this video, we're going to talk about how the setup suited him more than Martinelli and how Arsenal can learn from this in the future games. So let's get into it. Now, I feel like this is a very important video to make because obviously the left-hand side has been the place of interest for Arsenal fans this summer, and a lot of things that Arsenal did in this Villa game will obviously be a little bit changed with hopefully the inclusion of Mikel Merino, which looks to be done. And I also don't want to blame Martinelli completely because a lot of people have been criticising his performance. Now, I do think Martinelli has been struggling for Arsenal. I do think there is a confidence problem there and he looks a bit lacklustre on the ball sometimes. However, in this game, the setup that both teams didn't really help him. Aston Villa decided to mark both of the midfielders for Arsenal, Timber coming in from left back, to block any passes between the lines. This always allowed a pass to Martinelli on the left side, but because this was so deep and Arsenal still aren't very quick at switching the ball from left to right, often it allowed Aston Villa to get back and actually get over to him. And even in moments where Arsenal did finally get the ball up, it came to Timber and they could finally progress down the left side. As you can see, Martinelli doesn't really have much room to go. There's no one really making them progressive runs in behind for him because Havertz was in the central part at this point. This meant that Rice obviously could make these runs, but Rice was often man-marked by Onana in the midfield. This allowed at least two players for Aston Villa to be able to cover for Martinelli, and when he got the ball, he simply couldn't really get past one when another one was covering to get around him. And this is a very good system by Aston Villa to have two players on the wingers at all times because Arsenal aren't that quick in transition. Now, a solution that will definitely help Martinelli in these situations is having that midfielder that can turn and bring the ball forward. While Rice is okay in the left centre mid spot and is good at pushing into space in front of him, when he's getting man-marked like this, he can't really shake off Onana at any moment, and when you give the ball to him, he's not exactly going to be the best agile dribbling person to go past him and open up that space for Martinelli, which kind of limits Arsenal, especially on this side compared to the right where you can have someone like Odegaard who's a lot more intricate. We have also seen Martinelli's role being a bit changed this season and he's a lot more pushed to get into the box back post when Saka is crossing the ball. Now, he hasn't really found this to work yet and he is kind of there as a safety measurement if everyone misses it and he can score an easy goal, but obviously this isn't going to come off most of the time because it will either go to Havertz or the goalkeeper will save it. And because Arsenal have been prioritised a lot of wing play recently, Martinelli does sit inside the central areas when we are getting broke on so we can get a quick counter and he can be in the middle, but it doesn't really seem to go his way. Sometimes Rice also occupies that role which pushes Martinelli further out wide, and even in that space he is not finding the ball and not getting it from his teammates. Now, the few times that Arsenal actually did transition the ball quickly, there was one here where Partey fires it into Rice. Rice picks it up and does a great pass into Martinelli, who does a good pass into Havertz, who misses the chance. This was one time that finally Martinelli got that space within the box where he could finally run at the defenders. And I think Arsenal just needs to be a lot quicker if we're going to get Martinelli in these positions more often. And although Martinelli plays centrally when Arsenal are getting broke on so they can get that transitional threat if needed, sometimes he can be a bit too wide when we've got the ball in an elevated position, and against a low block when you've got Martinelli by himself trying to get past two or three players, it isn't very helpful. There wasn't a lot of backup by Timber in this game, who I didn't think had the best game, and Declan Rice doesn't seem to have that relationship with Martinelli or the ability to have one of them change their runs. They're kind of relying on Havertz to come over, and by the passing metrics you can see Havertz was more suited to the central areas in this game, while Martinelli and Declan Rice just had an easy pass there where you can see what's happening rather it than being a triangle which was spoken about before. Now, when Trossard came on, the same fundamental factors were there, but you could understand a little bit more with how he plays. Now, the goal is a bit of an anomaly in this situation. The ball kindly bounces into the middle and Trossard is in that same position at the start that you would see Martinelli in the first half, being in a little bit of amount of space because Aston Villa have got two on Saka at this point. And obviously Arsenal work it really well with the triangles down the right side between Ben White, Odegaard and Saka, which have been great all year, and Partey was often quite close to them as well. And we all know that Trossard isn't going to be someone that wants to pick the ball up from deep. He does want to pick it up and just do a couple of touches to basically be effective. So he's in the box, gets into the area he needs to, and it breaks to him and he takes it brilliantly. And that central movement from the left hand side in towards the box is something that Martinelli doesn't do very often, because I think when he comes on, or the start of the game, he is occupied with keeping that width on the left side, while in Trossard's case in the box it is just getting to the best area to shoot. Now, Now, the real reason why Trossard did change this game when he came on wasn't necessarily the goal, because I think that is just great ingenuity, but I'm not necessarily sure that Martinelli could do that as well. It's just that Trossard is a lot quicker with the ball behind him and a lot quicker at making runs within space. Arsenal, yet again, when they actually get it into the middle, I mean, this isn't incredibly quick, but they get it into the middle with Gabriel, and straight away, Trossard and Gabriel have that connection to do that ball over the top to get him in behind. Trossard making these runs is something that we want Martinelli to do, but often when Martinelli makes runs nowadays, it seems to be more out wide rather than forward, and it only seems to be forward more when he's around the penalty box and it's closer to the goal rather than being from deep like the situation was. Trossard coming on offers something different in this case, and at this point maybe Aston Villa hadn't dealt with it because they didn't really expect it, considering they hadn't had it much this game. But we've seen this pass over the top in the dark area a few times before. We saw it last season when he played against Everton and Vieira was doing that pass to him. It's something that he clearly likes and has worked on. But one of the things that makes Trossard effective is playing to his strengths, making him not have many touches on the ball, getting him into key areas. And Declan Rice seems to have that understanding when Trossard comes on to make the runs in behind. Here is a dead ball situation. Gabriel has a free kick. You can see Trossard's out wide and Rice is in the middle of the two players that are trying to track him. Now, Rice actually makes the same run as Trossard and goes to where he is to get closer, and they consistently make runs off each other, which Trossard has to do minimal touches to get Rice through, and obviously does a brilliant pullback, which Odegaard should score, but obviously doesn't. And now I think you get more of this when you get Marino come in, and he has a lot more attacking presence than Rice and will understand when to make runs and help his winger, and you will get this when you have a bit more of Calafiori in there as well. When he came on, Arsenal looked a little bit better because Calafiori likes getting forward, not in just central places, but also going out wide to overlap. And obviously Arsenal were very worried about the mid block from Aston Villa, and Martinelli really struggled to actually have any support yet again out there because Timber just sat in midfield not being able to get the ball because he was blocked. And in the stats you can just see the involvement that both of them had. Trossard only played around 25 minutes and Martinelli played 65, and you can argue the game's more open later on, especially when Trossard scores to make that happen. But Martinelli created 2 chances in 65 minutes with high XG. Obviously that Havertz one was quite high, but he only had 5 touches in the opposition box, which is where you want him to have a lot of his touches. He only had 1 pass into the final third and only actually had 27 touches in the game. He was barely involved. Trossard in 25 minutes, however, had 3 shots compared to Martinelli's 0, which already is a clear indicator we need to be getting Martinelli more shots. Made 4 touches in the opposition box and 1 pass into the final third. Now that's not that much compared to Martinelli. He had 13 touches, a lot less, but in 25 minutes you can see his involvements are much more, and you can see more importantly Trossard is in there just to basically score goals. He's not necessarily going to deal with all the build-up play, but he's getting in them impact moments where we're in the box, and I think sometimes you've got to look at Martinelli more in that way than someone that's going to build up the ball. We need to get him in behind and in these key areas, and it's not all Martinelli's fault. We've gone through the fact that Marino will make it a lot easier with Rice, but Trossard doesn't seem to struggle with that because I think it plays to his strengths a little bit more. Martinelli needs to start making these blindside runs in behind, and even if they don't get the ball sometimes, if you keep making these runs, eventually you'll be found. And if you don't find the runs, then maybe come centrally inside the box to be able to actually get on the end of good chances and have more involvement within the team. I do think he should come centrally a lot more sometimes. It was mostly blocked by the fact that they were in a mid block the whole time. And now while I think Trossard right now is playing a lot better than Martinelli and has been for a while, there is still arguments on who you should start. I still think Martinelli against people like Brighton, who we play next week, will be better because they will play a very intense system and we need to get in behind them with Martinelli. And as you can see here by Alex's analysis on them, they are different in different roles. Martinelli is definitely a better player out of possession. He presses a lot better. He is working a lot harder than I think Trossard does. He is a forward runner, just straight line. He doesn't really like curling his runs inwards compared to Trossard and people like Saka. And there is definitely struggles with Martinelli in 1v1s compared to Trossard. Maybe it's that experience level that comes in. And Trossard doesn't seem to let things get to him as much as Martinelli, which is also another problem with Martinelli's game in my opinion. But all these things mean that it probably is better to start Martinelli right now, but Trossard is definitely an impact off the bench. And if things continue like this and Marino doesn't come in and make much impact for Martinelli, then I can see Trossard starting or potentially a new signing. Let me know in the comments who you think should start. Let me know what you think about Martinelli and Trossard's performances recently. And if you want to see a replacement winger that we could sign, please go and watch my video where I analyse so many forwards that we could potentially buy in the next 5 days. Thank you guys for watching.